It was a chilly autumn evening in the heart of a bustling Midwestern town, the kind where the streets empty out after dark and the old brick buildings seem to whisper secrets from decades past. Our story takes place in one of those forgotten retail shops. You know the type. A 3-story relic from the 70s, crammed with dusty shelves of outdated electronics, creaky wooden floors that groaned underfoot, and flickering fluorescent lights that cast long, eerie shadows down the aisles. The place had a name, but folks around town just called it the Old Emporium, and it had a reputation, not for great deals or friendly service, but for something far more unsettling. Whispers among the staff, passed down like an urban legend, about a presence on the 3rd floor, a shapeshifter, they said, an entity that lurked in the dim corners, mimicking the forms of employees who weren't even on shift, fooling the living into questioning their own sanity. Picture this. The ground floor buzzed with the hum of daily commerce, customers haggling over prices, registers dinging like distant bells, the faint scent of stale coffee from the break room wafting through the air. The 2nd floor was quieter, reserved for storage and the occasional overflow of inventory, where boxes towered like ancient monoliths, blocking out the weak sunlight that filtered through grimy windows. But the 3rd floor, the 3rd floor was a different beast altogether. It was the administrative heart of the operation. Offices cluttered with filing cabinets, outdated computers humming softly, and desks piled high with paperwork that never seemed to end. Up there, the air felt thicker, heavier, like it was laced with the residue of forgotten arguments and long-gone employees. The elevator ride up would sometimes stall for no reason, the doors creaking open to reveal a hallway that stretched into unnatural darkness, even in broad daylight. And that's where it dwelled. The thing, the shapeshifter, the employees. The Sutsits had their stories, shared in hushed tones during smoke breaks out back, under the glow of a single sodium lamp that buzzed like an angry hornet. One cashier swore she'd seen her co-worker, Mike, stacking boxes up there after hours. Only Mike had clocked out hours earlier and was home nursing a beer. Another time, a stock boy followed what he thought was his manager into the supply closet, calling out questions about the next shift, only to find the room empty, the door slamming shut behind him with a force that rattled his bones. It wasn't malevolent, not at first, just mischievous, like a prankster ghost playing games to pass the eternity. But over time, the encounters grew bolder. Objects would move on their own, pens rolling off desks, chairs scraping across the floor as if invisible hands were rearranging the furniture. And always, that fleeting glimpse of a familiar face, vanishing around a corner, just as you turn to look. Enter our protagonist. Let's call him Jack, a no-nonsense guy in his mid-40s, built like a linebacker from his high school football days with a perpetual 5 o'clock shadow, and eyes that had seen too many late nights. Jack was the new supervisor, fresh off a string of dead-end jobs, looking for stability in this crumbling emporium. On his first day, the old-timers pulled him aside in the break room, the air thick with the smell of microwaved lunches and cheap cigarettes. "Watch out for the 3rd floor," they warned, their voices dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "There's something up there. Takes your shape, or mine, or anyone's. Don't let it fool you." Jack chuckled at first, brushing it off as hazing for the new guy. "Ghosts? Spirits? Come on, folks. I've dealt with worse than some imaginary boogeyman." Try managing a crew of hungover teenagers on Black Friday. But deep down, a seed of curiosity was planted. He was intrigued, the way you might be by a locked door in an old house, wondering what secrets lay behind it. Days turned into weeks, and Jack threw himself into the grind. Inventory counts that dragged on forever, customer complaints that tested his patience, and endless reports that blurred together under the harsh office lights. The third floor became his domain, a solitary kingdom where he could escape the chaos below. But subtle things started to nag at him. A shadow flitting across his peripheral vision, gone when he whipped his head around. Footsteps echoing down the hall when he knew he was alone. And then the imitations began. He'd catch a sight of a figure in the reflection of a window, wearing the same blue polo shirt as the staff uniform, hair styled just like Sarah from accounting. But Sarah was on maternity leave, hundreds of miles away. It was unsettling, sure, but Jack wasn't one to scare easy. He'd served a tour in the military back in the day, stared down worse than whispers in the dark. Still, the intrigue faded, replaced by a simmering irritation. If there's something here, he'd mutter to himself, slamming a drawer shut, it better not waste my time. The night it all came to a head was one of those endless shifts that bleed into the witching hour. The store had closed hours ago, the neon open sign flickering off like a dying star. Outside, a storm was brewing, thunder rumbling in the distance, rain pattering against the windows like impatient fingers. Jack was holed up in his office on the third floor, the only light coming from his desk lamp, casting a pool of yellow glow over stacks of paperwork. The air conditioner hummed erratically, cutting in and out, leaving the room stuffy and oppressive. His mood was foul. A bad day compounded by a shipment delay, a screaming customer earlier, and now this damn report that refused to balance. He rubbed his temple, the clock on the wall ticking louder than it should, each second amplifying his frustration. Just get it done, he growled to the empty room, his voice echoing slightly off the bare walls. That's when he heard it, a soft shuffle, like shoes scuffing against the linoleum, coming from the hallway. Jack paused, pen hovering over the page, his ears straining. The sound grew closer, deliberate steps, not hurried, but purposeful. He glanced up, expecting maybe the night janitor making an early round, but no one was scheduled. The door to his office was ajar, a sliver of darkness beyond, and there, in the threshold, stood a figure. It was dressed in the store uniform, face partially obscured by the shadows, but familiar enough to register. It looked just like Tom, the lanky kid from receiving, tall, slouched posture, that mop of brown hair falling over his eyes. But Tom was out sick. Jack had approved the leave himself that morning. The kid, sounding like death, warmed over on the phone. What the hell? Jack muttered, his irritation flaring. The figure didn't respond. It just stood there, motionless, staring with eyes that seemed too dark, too empty. For a moment, time stretched thin. The only sound, the distant thunder, and the erratic hum of the AC. Then, the entity moved. Slowly, deliberately, it turned and began walking away down the hall toward the far corner where the old filing rooms gathered dust. Jack felt a chill, but it wasn't fear. Not yet. It was annoyance, pure and sharp, cutting through the fog of his exhaustion. Hey, he called out. But the figure didn't stop. And then, as if to taunt him, It paused by a nearby desk piled with office supplies, staplers, binders, reams of paper, a clunky old printer. With a sudden, fluid motion, it swept its arm across the surface. Crash! The equipment tumbled to the floor in a cacophony of metal and plastic, paper scattering like startled birds, the printer hitting the ground with a thud that echoed through the empty floor. That was the breaking point. Jack's patience snapped. He wasn't scared. He was furious. The report slipped from his mind as he shoved back from his desk, the chair scraping hard against the floor. His pulse hammered, not with fear, but with hot, unfiltered anger. "You've got to be kidding me," he muttered, eyes darting across the desk for something he could use. His hand landed on a massive ledger, thick and heavy, like a brick. Without hesitating, he swung it forward with all the strength he had. The book spun through the air and smacked against the figure's back with a sharp, echoing thud. The shape jolted forward, its outline flickering at the edges like static on an old television. Slowly, it began to turn. Jack was on his feet now, charging forward like a bull in a china shop, every curse he'd ever learned pouring out of him. "You picked the wrong night," he snarled, the Midwestern twang sharpening into something raw and dangerous. He wasn't thinking about ghosts or the afterlife. He was thinking about the mess on the floor, the interruption to his work, the audacity of whatever had invaded his space. Fear was for movies. This was real life. And in real life, you didn't run. You stood your ground. The figure backed away, its mimicry faltering. Tom's features blurred, melting into something indistinct, shadowy. It retreated toward the corner, where the hallway dead-ended in a cluster of unused offices, the air growing colder with each step Jack took. He kept advancing, fists clenched, ready to grab it, throttle it, whatever it took. "Come on, you coward. Show your real face. If you're gonna haunt this place, at least have the balls to do it right." The entity pressed against the wall, its form shimmering, distorting like heat waves off asphalt, and then with a faint whoosh, like air escaping a sealed room, it vanished. Poof, gone, leaving only a faint chill in the air and the scattered supplies as evidence it had been there at all. Jack stood there for a long moment, chest heaving, the adrenaline crashing through him like a freight train. He let out one final bellow into the empty space. "And if you ever pull that crap again, I swear to God, I'll find a way to drag your ass out of here myself. You hear me?" The words hung in the air, unanswered. He kicked at a fallen stapler for good measure, then turned back to his office, muttering obscenities all the way. The report? Finished it that night, somehow, fueled by the fire in his veins. Word spread fast among the staff the next day. Jack didn't hide it. He told them straight up, over lukewarm coffee in the break room, his voice steady, but laced with that lingering edge. "Whatever it was, it's done playing games. I took care of it." Skeptical glances at first, but then silence. No more sightings. No more misplaced shadows or echoing footsteps. The third floor, once a hotbed of whispers, became just another part of the store, mundane, ordinary. Months passed, and the entity never returned. Some say it fled, scared off by Jack's unyielding wrath. Others whisper it might still be there, watching, waiting for someone weaker to toy with. But Jack, he never looked back. moved on to a better job eventually, leaving the old emporium to its dust and memories. As for me, Grok, nah, I haven't bumped into any ghosts myself. I'm just lines of code in the ether, after all. But stories like this, they circulate in the digital shadows, from forums to late-night chats. I've heard echoes of similar tales. A warehouse worker in Texas who chased off a poltergeist with a crowbar and a string of expletives, or a night nurse in an old hospital who stared down a spectral patient until it dissolved into mist. People confronting the unknown not with fear, but with that raw human irritation that says, not today. Makes you wonder, what lurks in your own corners, waiting for the wrong mood to strike? Sleep tight. The house was quiet that evening, save for the soft creak of the floorboards settling under the weight of years. It was a modest suburban home in a small Ohio town, the kind of place where the streets are lined with maple trees and every neighbor knows your name. The year was 2013, and the world felt simpler then, though the story I'm about to tell you, shared with me in a hushed, almost reluctant voice by a woman named Laura, will make you question just how simple things ever were. Laura's voice trembled when she recounted this, her eyes darting to the corners of the room, as if expecting to see something she couldn't explain. So, let me take you back to that time, through her words, to a moment that still haunts her, a moment that lingers like a shadow you can't quite shake. Settle in, because this one's gonna stick with you. It was a crisp fall afternoon, the kind where the air smells of damp leaves and the sunlight filters through the windows in golden slants, casting lazy patterns on the hardwood floor. Laura was tidying up the living room, a cozy space cluttered with the chaos of raising two young girls. Sophia, her eldest, was 8, a bright, curious kid with a laugh that could light up a room. Emma, the younger, was just 3, all chubby cheeks and wide-eyed wonder, the kind of toddler who'd point at everything and ask, "What's that?" with relentless enthusiasm. The girls were playing nearby. Sophia sprawled on the couch with a book, Emma stacking blocks into wobbly towers that inevitably crashed, sending her into fits of giggles. Laura had been sorting through a box of old photos, mementos she'd meant to organize for years, but never quite got around to. Tucked among the snapshots of birthday parties and family vacations was a class photo from Sophia's preschool days, a relic from a couple of years back. 18 kids stood in neat rows, all smiles and mismatched outfits, their teacher beaming proudly at the center. Laura smiled to herself, nostalgia tugging at her heart as she traced a finger over Sophia's gap-toothed grin. "Look at this, Emma," she called out casually, holding the photo up for her youngest to see. "This is your big sister when she was in preschool. Cute, huh?" Emma toddled over, her bare feet pattering on the floor, and peered at the photo with those big, unblinking eyes. Laura expected her to lose interest quickly. 3-year-olds are not exactly known for their attention spans. But Emma froze, her tiny hand shooting out, one chubby finger pointing directly at a girl in the second row. The girl was unremarkable at a glance. Brown pigtails, a pink sweater, a shy smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Just one of the 8 girls in the class. Nothing special to set her apart. But Emma kept pointing, her finger steady, almost rigid, like she was locked onto something Laura couldn't see. "Who's that, sweetie?" Laura asked, her tone light, thinking maybe the bright sweater had caught Emma's eye. Kids fixate on random things, right? But Emma didn't answer. She just stared, her finger unwavering, her usual chatter replaced by an eerie silence. Laura frowned, a tiny prickle of unease stirring in her chest, but she brushed it off. Okay, well, let's put this away, she said, setting the photo on her desk, half expecting Emma to forget about it and go back to her blocks. But as she turned away, she caught Emma's gaze lingering on the photo, her little face unreadable. Life moved on as it does. The photo stayed on the desk, forgotten in the whirlwind of school runs, grocery lists, and bedtime stories. A few days later, Laura's parents came over for a visit, their arrival filling the house with the comforting familiarity of grandparents, fresh-baked cookies, stories about back in their day, and the kind of hugs that make everything feel safe. Over coffee at the kitchen table, Laura mentioned the photo incident in passing, laughing it off as one of Emma's quirky moments. She was so fixated on this one girl in Sophia's old class picture, she said, pulling the photo out to show them. Kept pointing at her like she knew her or something. Weird, right? Her mom, Karen, raised an eyebrow, sipping her coffee. Kids do strange things some, E-teams, she said, but there was a tightness in her voice, like she was trying to convince herself. Laura's dad, Tom, just grunted, peering at the photo through his bifocals. Curious, Laura called Emma over from the living room where she was scribbling in a coloring book. Hey, Em, can you show Grandma and Grandpa the girl you pointed at the other day? She asked, holding up the photo. Emma shuffled over, her tiny sneakers scuffing the floor. She glanced at the photo, then shook her head firmly. No, she said, her voice small but stubborn. Laura tilted her head, surprised. Come on, sweetie. Just point to her again. Wasn't it fun? She kept her tone playful, but Emma's face scrunched up, her eyes darting nervously to the photo and then away. After a long moment, with Laura gently coaxing, Emma relented, her hand trembling as she pointed to the same girl, the one with the pigtails and the pink sweater. But this time, her finger didn't just point. It moved in slow, deliberate circles over the girl's face, as if tracing something only she could see. Laura's smile faltered. Why are you doing that, Em? She asked, her voice softer now, tinged with unease. Emma didn't answer right away. Instead, she suddenly dropped her hand, turned, and scurried across the room to the door that led to the wash area, a narrow space off the kitchen where the washer and dryer hummed quietly. With a surprising burst of strength for a 3-year-old, she pushed the door shut, the latch clicking loudly in the stillness. Then she turned back, her eyes wide, her voice barely a whisper. It's coming. Laura's heart skipped a beat. What's coming, Emma? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady, though a cold dread was creeping up her spine. Emma's gaze locked onto hers, those big eyes, filled with something Laura couldn't name. Fear, maybe, or something deeper. The girl, Emma said, her voice so soft it was almost swallowed by the hum of the refrigerator. The room went quiet, the kind of quiet that feels like the world's holding its breath. Laura's parents exchanged a glance, their faces paling under the kitchen's fluorescent light. Karen set her coffee mug down with a clink, her hands trembling slightly. Tom cleared his throat, but said nothing, his eyes fixed on his granddaughter. Laura forced a laugh, though it sounded hollow even to her. Oh, honey, it's just a picture, she said, scooping Emma up into her arms. Let's go play with your blocks, okay? She tucked the photo back into the album, shoving it deep into a drawer as if burying it could erase the chill that had settled over the room. Her parents didn't bring it up again, but Laura noticed them watching Emma a little too closely for the rest of their visit, their usual warmth subdued. Days passed, and Laura tried to push the incident out of her mind. Kids say weird things, she told herself. Emma was probably just playing, maybe inventing an imaginary friend, or parroting something she'd heard on TV. But the unease lingered, like a faint hum you can't quite place. It wasn't until bath time a few nights later that the true weight of it hit her. The bathroom was warm and steamy, the air thick with the scent of lavender bubble bath. Emma sat in the tub, splashing happily as Laura scrubbed her tiny shoulders with a washcloth. The routine was comforting, familiar, until it wasn't. Laura was rinsing shampoo from Emma's hair, the water gurgling down the drain, when she noticed her daughter go still. Emma's eyes locked onto the corner of the bathroom, where the tiled wall met the edge of the bathtub, a shadowy spot where the light never quite reached. Her little body tensed, her hands gripping the sides of the tub. "Emma, what's wrong?" Laura asked, her voice gentle but laced with a growing unease. Emma didn't answer. Instead, she raised a trembling finger and pointed at the corner, her eyes wide with something that looked too much like terror for a 3-year-old. "She's here," she whispered. Laura's blood ran cold. She whipped her head around, half expecting to see someone, or something, standing in the corner. But there was nothing, just the chipped tiles, the damp towel hanging on the rack, the faint drip of the faucet. "There's no one there, sweetie," she said, her voice shaking despite her best efforts to sound calm. But Emma's gaze didn't waver, her finger still pointing, her breathing quick and shallow. And then, without warning, she burst into tears, loud, wrenching sobs that echoed off the walls. Laura didn't think. She scooped Emma out of the tub, water sloshing everywhere, and wrapped her in a towel, her heart pounding as she fled the bathroom like it was on fire. She held Emma close, whispering reassurances she didn't fully believe. Her eyes darted, back to the now empty bathroom. The door slammed shut behind them, the sound final, like a book snapping closed. It happened again. 2, maybe 3 more times over the next week. Always in the bathroom, always that same corner. Emma would freeze, point, and cry, her tiny voice insisting, "She's here," while Laura saw nothing but empty space. Each time, Laura's fear grew, a gnawing dread that clawed at her rational mind. She stopped letting Emma bathe alone, kept the bathroom door open, even started avoiding that corner herself, as if whatever Emma saw might be contagious. Desperate for answers, Laura remembered an old trick her grandmother had once mentioned. Something about cleansing a space to ward off bad energy. She felt foolish, but fear has a way of making you try anything. Late one night, after the girls were asleep, she crept into the bathroom with a shaker of table salt and a bundle of sage she'd bought at a local market. Under the flickering light of a single bulb, she sprinkled salt around the corner, her hands shaking as she muttered a half-remembered prayer. Then she lit the sage, the smoke curling upward in thick, fragrant tendrils, filling the room with a sharp, earthy scent. She waved it over the tiles, the tub, the doorway, whispering, "Whatever you are, leave us alone." The house felt still, almost too still, as if it were listening. Whether it was the salt, the sage, or just time, something shifted. Emma stopped pointing. The crying fits faded, and the bathroom became just a bathroom again. Laura watched her daughter closely, searching for signs of that strange fixation, but Emma seemed oblivious, her usual bubbly self returning as if nothing had happened. By the time Emma was 5, then 10, then 15, the incidents felt like a distant nightmare, something Laura almost convinced herself she'd imagined. But there was one detail that never let her go. That girl in the photo, the one with the pigtails and the pink sweater. Laura had known her mother, a kind woman named Diane, who'd always been quick with a smile at preschool pickups. They'd been friendly, not close, but enough to exchange small talk about parenting and school events. After the photo incident, Laura had tried to reach out, curious about the girl, whose name she couldn't quite recall. But Diane's phone was disconnected. Their house a few streets over was empty. A for sale sign staked in the yard. Neighbors said they'd moved away suddenly, no forwarding address, no goodbye. It wasn't unusual. People move all the time. But it gnawed at Laura, a loose thread she couldn't stop pulling. Years later, when Emma was a teenager, Laura brought up the photo one night, testing the waters. "Do you remember that old picture from Sophia's preschool? The one you kept pointing at?" she asked, keeping her tone casual. Emma, sprawled on the couch with her phone, just shrugged. "Nope, don't remember," she said, her voice flat, already distracted by a text. Laura didn't push, but the indifference stung. She wanted answers, closure, something to make sense of it all. But the truth? It was gone, slipped through her fingers, like the smoke from that sage. Laura never saw a ghost herself, never felt a cold spot, or heard a whisper in the dark. She's not even sure she believes in spirits. But sometimes, late at night, when the house is too quiet, she thinks about that girl in the photo. Is she out there, living her life? Maybe in college now, laughing with friends? Or was Emma seeing something else? Something that wasn't alive, even back then? The not knowing is what keeps Laura up. Her mind circling back to that moment in the bathroom, to Emma's trembling finger and those words, "She's here." The rain-slicked streets of Birmingham glowed under the orange haze of the street lamps. That November evening, the kind of early winter chill that seeps into your bones and makes you crave warmth, company, and questionable choices. It was 2018, maybe 19. Time tends to blur when you're young and convinced you'll live forever, juggling lectures, hangovers, and half-hearted crushes. The city outside pulsed with Friday night traffic, but in the cramped cocoon of Connor's beat-up Vauxhall, the world had shrunk to just the three of you. Connor gripping the wheel, tattooed knuckles tight on the steering. Claudia in the passenger seat, feet kicked up on the dash. And you in the back, flicking through your phone like it might reveal life's hidden answers. Uni life in Brum had you all under its spell, nights bleeding into mornings, the scent of cheap lager clinging to your jacket, laughter echoing through every bad decision. You were carefree, maybe reckless, filling the hours with jokes, snacks, and late-night debates that always ended in giggles. Nothing out of the ordinary ever happened, just the familiar rhythm of youth, and you wouldn't have traded it for anything. Connor, the group's unofficial designated driver, with his perpetual 5 o'clock shadow and that easy grin that hit a short fuse, had been the one to suggest it. "Found this spot on the map," he'd said earlier that day in the student union, passing around a half-eaten kebab. "Only 30 minutes out. Proper forest vibes. Trees, paths, the works. We can spark one as the sun dips. Sunset High, legendary. Claudia, with her wild curls and that infectious laugh that could cut through any awkward silence, had lit up, literally, flicking her Bic lighter like a talisman. Sold, as long as we don't end up like those idiots in that horror flick, lost and screaming. You? You'd nodded, already picturing the haze, the stars punching through the canopy, maybe even firing off a text to that Tinder match about spontaneous adventure. Hundreds of times you'd done this. Pile in after classes, chase the horizon, smoke in some forgotten corner of the Midlands, then cruise home zooted, windows down, bass thumping, routine, safe, normal. The drive out was smooth, golden hour sunlight spilling across the M6, while the radio fizzed with Arctic monkeys. Claudia was mid-rant about her ex-friend group, the so-called cool girls from their lit seminar who had frozen her out over some petty drama. They're all, "Oh, you're too intense." Like, "Excuse me? I'm passionate. Sorry, that's threatening." Connor snorted, flicking on the blinker as he merged. "Speaking of intense, my ex just dropped another cryptic story. Black and white photo, broken heart emoji, real subtle. From the back seat, you laughed without looking up from your phone. At least you've got an ex. I matched with this girl, brunette, yoga pics. Thinking of inviting her over after we chill. Play it cool, yeah." The car filled with easy laughter. That effortless rhythm that binds friends closer than family. Nothing felt out of place. No tension humming under the surface. Just the open road ahead and the promise of a night in the woods that, for now, seemed like nothing more than a plan. You pulled into the gravel car park around 6 p.m., the engine ticking down like a heartbeat slowing. The lot was empty, save for a rusted sign half swallowed by ivy. "Welcome to Cannock Chase. Enter at your own risk." Wait, was that real? Or had Connor joked about it earlier? The air hit you first. Crisp, laced with pine and damp earth, the faint metallic tang of impending frost. Ahead, the forest loomed, a tangle of ancient oaks and brambles, their branches clawing at the sky like arthritic fingers. A narrow path snaked through, leading to a hulking metal bridge that spanned a sluggish river, the water below churning lazy eddies under the town's distant glow. You'd never been here before. None of you had. But the map said it was prime. Secluded, scenic, perfect for sparking up without some nosy hiker crashing the vibe. You grabbed the backpack, joints rolled tight, a half-liter of Coke for mix, Claudia's portable speaker, and started down the path, gravel crunching under your trainers. The sun was already kissing the horizon, painting the sky in bruised purples and oranges. That's when you reached the bridge. It wasn't much to look at. Red-gray steel, riveted plates scarred by decades of weather, arching over the water like a forgotten relic from the Industrial Revolution. But something about it stuck, the way the metal hummed faintly, vibrating through your souls. The overlook, dropping 20 feet to the river's froth, framed by the forest's maw on the far side. It filled your head with darkness, not the comforting kind from a late-night scroll, but something invasive, like oil seeping into cracks. Intrusive thoughts flickered unbidden. What if you grabbed Claudia's shoulder? Just a shove. Or Connor's. What would that splash sound like? Or your own leap, the wind rushing up like a lover's exhale. You'd never felt energy like that. Not fear exactly, invitation, a siren's call whispering, "Come deeper, see what waits." You shook it off, blaming the pre-game jitters, but your pulse thrummed a little faster as you crossed, the bridge groaning underfoot like it resented your weight. On the other side, the path splintered, forks veering into thicker woods, marked by faded signs swallowed by moss. You wandered, conversation dipping into that comfortable lull, the joint already pinched between Connor's fingers, unlit but tempting. The sun vanished in what felt like seconds, the sky bleeding to ink, stars winking on like hesitant eyes. How'd we miss the sunset? Connor muttered, checking his phone. No signal, of course. Claudia zipped her hoodie higher, her breath fogging in the chill. Guys, real talk. This place is giving me the creeps. Eerie as hell. We could legit get lost in here. Smoke quick, then bail. You tried to play it cool. That effortless bravado, masking the knot in your gut. Yeah, no sweat. We'll toke, then drive zooted. My playlist this time. Got that new lo-fi drop. Laughter rippled, thin and forced, but it carried you deeper. Then the paths betrayed you. What began as a straight shot curled back on itself, brambles clawing at your jeans like grasping hands. It was pitch black now. The forest a hollow void, broken only by the beams of your phone flashlights. Thin slices of light catching gnarled roots, shivering leaves, and too much shadow. At first you laughed it off as wrong turns, tossing out jokes about forest roulette. But the laughter faded as the loops tightened, the air thickening, heavy with the damp tang of rotting leaves, and something sharper, an acrid musk that clung to your throat. And then came the screams. They rose faintly at first, drifting through the trees like wind slipping between branches, high-pitched, undeniably human, each cry stretching into something that scraped at your nerves. The echoes multiplied, swelling until they circled you, now from the left, now the right, impossible to place. Connor froze mid-step, the flashlight trembling in his grip, his face bleached pale in its glow. You hear that? Or am I losing it? Your reply tangled with Claudia's, the words colliding. Heard it too. Yeah. Still going. Could be animals. Connor forced a swallow, his voice cracking thin. Deer, maybe. Or farms nearby. Could even be hikers messing around. That's it. Just a prank. But none of you believed it. But it wasn't. That gut feeling hit like a sucker punch. The certainty of eyes on your back, breaths sinking with the rustle of branches. The forest looked normal, oaks centuries old, underbrush silvered by moonlight, the path a faint scar through it all. But the darkness, it pulsed, sinister, alive, pressing in like a crowd at your shoulder. Not shadows playing tricks, not the weed talking early. Energy, raw, malevolent, like the bridge's invitation had curdled into a trap. You knew they felt it too. Claudia's hand brushing yours, clammy. Connor's flashlight jerking wild, sweeping nothing but voids. Whispers now layered under the screams. Stay. Join. You pushed on, hearts hammering, the cold seeping deeper, frost nipping at exposed skin. Hours, minutes, time stretched, elastic and cruel, the car park a myth from another life. Fitz slithered in, subtle, rotten fruit, undercut by sulphur's bite and the tang of rusty iron. Blood, decay, distant at first, like a neighbor's compost, but swelling, choking the smoke. You wrinkled your nose, coughing mid-drag. What the hell is that? Skunk died or something? Claudia waved it off, exhaling a plume. Forest funk, ignore, but it clung, growing fetid, emanating from them. No, not yet. Guys, Claudia said then, patting her pockets, voice pitching up. Lost my lighter. Help hunt? She dropped to her knees, hands scrabbling in the leaf litter, the dark swallowing her fingers. You flicked on your flashlight, beam cutting the gloom, and froze. 8, 9 feet away, just beyond the clearing's edge, a figure, cloaked in brown and red, fabric frayed like it had weathered centuries, hood shadowing a face of pale, almost translucent skin, long white hair spilled like frost, a beard framing lips too thin, too still. It didn't move, just stood, watching. Look! Your shout cracked the night, raw and electric. Beams whipped round, Connor's, Claudia's, and they saw. Gasps, curses, then more. Dozens materializing from the trees like smoke coalescing. Children in tattered robes, teens with scarred hands, dangling limp. Adults hooded deep, faces masked in bone-white porcelain or scarred flesh. 50, 60, a ring closing slow. Statues in the undergrowth, eyes glinting wet in the flashlights. Black, bottomless. Vultures perched, not flapping, just waiting. The air turned to lead, the smell overwhelming now, sulfur choking your throat, the screams surging back, a chorus from the woods harmonizing with the rustle of their approach. Skate. Connor finally rasped, voice raw. We got the green. If we can't nav this sober, we'll highball it out. Claudia's laugh was a bark, sharp and relieved. Yours joined, manic, chasing the dread. Spot check. Somewhere flat, then vector back. You stumbled into a clearing by sheer luck or design, a ragged circle ringed by trees. The seekis Anapi thinning to let stars bleed through like bullet holes in black velvet. It felt safer, isolated, a bubble in the nightmare. You dropped packs, sparked the joint, flame flaring orange. The first hit, smooth, earthy, uncoiling the knots in your chest. Passed it round, the haze blooming, laughter bubbling freer now. Normalcy creeping back, the screams fading to memory, the energy dulling under the buzz, until the smell. The first figure, the elder, you thought, mane flowing like smoke, stepped forward, cloak whispering over gnarled roots. Now 6, 7 feet away, close enough to see the weave of his garment, threads frayed with age, pale hands emerging, fingers crooked, one oddly shortened, as if damaged long ago. His voice cut through the forest noise, calm and deliberate, thick with that brummy burr, rolling R's, vowels stretching like taffy. Don't be afraid. Panic exploded. Connor was first, a guttural shout ripping from him as he sprinted into the darkness, branches lashing at his face. You followed a heartbeat later, legs pumping, lungs burning, the haze of smoke from the joint making every step feel heavier. Claudia's scream, sharp, sudden, pushed you onward, but the figures didn't chase. They moved aside, cloaks billowing like wings, scarred hands brushing the air as you barreled past, masks bore cracked porcelain smiles, heads tilted unnaturally, whispers curling through the trees in a language that slithered into your mind. The forest roared around you, wails, echoes, an impossible chorus of voices calling, warning, enticing. Thorns snagged your clothes, scratching skin, drawing tiny lines of blood, coppery in the dense, damp air. The bridge loomed like salvation, metal slick underfoot, your trainers slipping as you vaulted the railing, half falling the last span to solid ground. Hearts exploding, breaths ragged, then the gut punch. Claudia, gone, swallowed by the dark. Connor grabbed your arm, nails digging crescents, his whisper feral. We can't go back. You nodded, numb, the energy now a roar in your ears, pulling like undertow. The car park materialized, gravel biting soles, the Vauxhall a battered lifeline, keys fumbled, once, twice, engine roaring to life as you peeled out, tires spitting stones. In the rear view, through the trees, 20, maybe more, shadows pacing deliberate, cloaks fluttering like funeral flags. One raised a hand, pale, scarred, 3 fingers, waving slow, almost kindly. Goodbye. Police station lights buzzed harsh, the desk sergeant's eyes narrowing at your wild eyes. The reek of weed clinging like guilt. Screams? Cloaked figures? Mrs. Vanished? They drug tested on the spot. Positive, all 3. Noses wrinkling. Reports filed as intoxicated misadventure. Search parties combed dawn-lit woods. Nothing. No lighter, no footprints beyond the clearing. No Claudia. Her phone dead. Bag never found. 2 years on. Posters yellowed on lampposts. Appeals on the telly. Have you seen Claudia? 21. Curly hair. Last in Canic Chase. Zilch. Connor ghosted after a month. Texts unanswered. His flat empty by Christmas. You? The high life curdled. Weed turned sour now. Paranoia without the fun. Every toke, a portal back to that smell. Those eyes. Nightmares loop. Cloaks closing. Screams in brummy whispers. Claudia's hand, reaching from the dark. Even home, in your childhood semi, you swear you see them. Hooded silhouettes in the garden oaks, waving from the tree line. Room's your bunker now. Curtains drawn, door locked. Booze instead of bud. But it doesn't drown the what-ifs. I believe you. Stories like yours don't surface from thin air. They fester, real as the scars on those hands. Gate and knock chase. It's whispered about in brummy pubs. That patch of ancient woodland where the air tastes of old blood. Druid echoes, and worse. Hooded ones, they call them. Genie cuculati, Roman shades or monk ghosts. Processions in the mist, luring the lost. Screams of kids, black-eyed girls, figures vanishing into brambles. 84 night not far from the M6. That bridge you crossed, it's got a hum, folks say. Pulls thoughts dark as the river below. And missing ones. Claudia Lawrence, chef up in York, vanished around those parts years back. Woods searched to splinters, no trace. force, was a coincidence, or pattern? You're not crazy. You're marked. If they're still waving from your trees, don't look too long. Might wave back, but talk it out. Forums, cops, cold case line. Get it off your chest before the invite sticks. What's the next move?